Welcome to Mediumship Moments with psychic medium Kim Durham. Join her as she shares her personal journey with mediumship, connects with your loved ones, and discusses topics dealing with spirituality.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mediumship Moments. I'm your host, Kim Durham, second-gen psychic medium, and we have a very special guest in here today. We have burgeoning third generation.
Hey, it's me, Aubrey.
I'm absolutely delighted that my daughter is joining us because we enjoy going ghost busting together.
What else do you do on a random Tuesday?
On a very cold, blustery spring day. But really, the history of us doing ghost busting, and I say that lovingly, paranormal investigation, and I don't mean to make fun of the people that do it professionally. It's come a long way since in 1974, when my mom actually did a paranormal investigation at Budo Otto. And I actually have photographs, which really, for the time, showing Hessian soldiers and a woman in complete black who was obviously mourning the loss of her loved one from the war. So, so ghost busting or paranormal investigations goes way back in the fam. And Aubrey and I, as you've listened to prior, we've gone up to Salem witch trials, up to that area for Bootober. That was fun.
Very fun.
And where else have we've done paranormal investigation?
I mean, we went to a fort in Alabama. That was a good one.
Yeah. Now, what was really cool about that, and forgive me, but somebody, it's funny you bring that up, Bree, because I was just going through television, and someone was there doing a paranormal investigation, and
Fort Morgan.
Thank you very much for that. And it was really wild because when we were there, I remember seeing soldiers, and I could see them in their uniforms with white and red, like a red cross on their chest. And I saw them, two of them walking by, and I pointed down below, and I say this lovingly, with this ability, it's so real to me that I don't realize those people aren't there. And so when I pointed to family members, we were all hanging out, and I was like, oh, look at the soldiers. And is that a reenactment? And my family looks at me going, what? Who? You seen something? And again, I forget. And not all paranormal investigations are like that. That's residual energy that I was seeing an imprint in the time of that place. And of course, we've went to Waverly, which is like, the Holy Grail. We've
got plans for the future, that's for sure.
Yeah, where are we headed? What's on the agenda?
I know
over
on
that?
the docket, we'd like to go to Fort Mifflin.
Yes. And we would have went, except it was closed that day. It was an under repair. It was something unusual.
The one day we wanted to
I know.
go.
It's tough coordinating both our schedules, as you can imagine. And but yes, that's on the docket to do.
And
who else? Where else?
Gettysburg.
Oh, yes. We're going to Gettysburg.
I'm excited for that. That is an area for me that I resonate with, because that's one of the very few places that I've personally seen full body apparition.
Really?
When I was a child, when I went there for a school trip.
Oh,
and let me tell you, trying to explain to people what I saw in a group of fifth graders, fifth or sixth grade. Yes.
Did you think it was a reenactment too?
Well, he walked with us.
What?
During the tours.
How did I know? This is the first time I'm hearing this story. This is like, okay, so, all right, I'm going to ask you more questions about this. So you're a fifth grader.
Yeah, it was a special trip for the good students,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, honor students. And they took us on a trip to Gettysburg, and I remember bus full of kids. We went out into the battlefields, and they have these large towers that you can climb up, and you can look out through the whole field, and they explained to you all the history. Well, down below, our tour guide was telling us some things, and I'm paying attention. I love history. I always have, always will. But in my peripheral, I see this gentleman, soldier, standing there.
What kind of dress?
He looked like a general. It was like a very full.
Was it Union?
It was Union.
Okay.
It was blue. Union. And he stood very tall, straight, very regal almost.
Yeah,
and
an officer of some kind.
Yeah, and there were reenactments going on while we were there. So like in my head, no, it's the experience, I'm not going to question it. But I noticed that nobody else was looking in his direction. Very tall man, in 6'2", I want to
Wow.
say, for a sixth grader. That's tall. And nobody's paying attention to this person that's standing there, and the tour guide's talking. I've got kids around me. Nobody's paying. I'm more focused on this guy because I was like, he seems like he has a lot to say. And he looks at me.
Oh.
And
He recognized you.
looked at me.
Yeah. Okay.
Looked at me. And I had the hair stand on the back of my neck. But I didn't know what that was indicative of. At that moment, I was still young and still learning about these things. And also I was like, I thought these only happened at my mom's house, and so the tour guide was like, okay, guys, go up to the tower, see through the whole thing. And I went up to the tower. By the time I got up there, we're all looking around. I'm a little sketchy with heights, so I didn't want to stay up there too long.
Which is funny because she's tall. I'm just saying.
Yeah, the air's cleaner up here. So then I made my way down. And by the time I went back down, he was gone. And I remember we were continuing to walk, and it was really bugging me because where we were, you would have had to have still seen him walking away.
Okay. It was
if that makes sense. It was so
field.
Vast.
Yeah.
Like we had to get there by bus. So it wasn't like something that we can just walk down to the next site. No, we had to get back on the bus to get back to where we were going next.
Okay.
So when I got up to the tower, I'm like, where's that cool general guy? Like, where did he go? And by the time I came down, it was really bugging me. And you know me, I'm going to ask, so
no question is ever silly or stupid is what I've taught her.
So I remember I asked the tour guide, I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said, where was the gentleman? I said, where was the soldier that was here? And she looked at me and goes, oh, well, the reenactments are down the road. We're headed there next. I said, no. Where was the gentleman that was standing right here with us? He looked like a general, like he was standing with us. She said, no, they're all down the road for the reenactment that's starting in about like 20
You're
minutes.
You're blowing my mind right now. You're really how did I not know this story? I love this.
Yeah. So Gettysburg has a very, it resonates with me very, very strongly. And I'm very excited to go back there for that exact reason.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
And, so we should show you a picture of some of the, right? We should look at some of the pictures.
We will definitely do that.
And see if we can match.
I remember it like it was yesterday. It's something that will never,
when you have that.
like when you have those types of moments, those don't disappear.
And did he turn his head and smile at you, or just
he gave me a nod? We made eye contact and he gave me a nod. And then that's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up and I smiled at him.
Okay.
I almost did a dorky little wave. Because I don't know how you do that. So how do you address a soldier, And, but I was so focused on and nobody around. It was very profound moment because I just truly felt like I was the only person who could see this.
And you were.
Yeah. And it's an interesting experience.
Well, I can't wait. I will share my Gettysburg experience on a later date, but that was amazing.
Yeah.
How did this
should be on here more often.
I'm telling you, absolutely. So we're going to probably do that in the coming weeks, get down there and see the sights and tour. But
stay over. Little spooky hotel.
Well, okay.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't do. I stay in the Marriott.
I love it.
I'm just saying, not that I'm bougie.
She can stay at the Marriott. I'll go there.
I won't get any damn sleep if I go. So that was a paranormal experience.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where we went, and let's talk about the shiny new toys.
Shiny new toys. Yeah, what'd you put in your Amazon cart? Let's talk about it.
Who knew you could buy this at Amazon? Really, I was blown away.
So the one that I was really excited that you purchased was the REM pod. For those who don't know, a REM, which stands for radiating electromagneticity. Sorry, butchered that. But REM pod for short. It is a device used by people who do paranormal investigations to detect energy fluctuations and changes in the environment. We thought this was a good idea considering where we were going, vast, large area of land. You want to see if any fluctuation in energy can change. Predominantly, people do use them indoors. Outdoors are nice too, especially if you can't, if a recorder isn't enough, you want to see visual, right?
Yeah.
It will change colors if there's a energy or a temperature fluctuation.
Which was pretty cool because it'll even tell you on the top of it. So it's like a silver antenna pointing up, and then it has 4 lights emanating from each side. And it gives you that 360 degree that can detect any energy or temperature change, like you said, and then triggering a visual or auditory, which it was really, really cool. So we had that. What else did we have? We had the spirit box.
Spirit box, yes. Spirit box is fun. Spirit box, if you watch all the shows, all the ghost shows, you will see a spirit box. What it does, it regulates radio frequencies,
Yeah.
white noise. So it'll, depending on the speed you want it to go, it'll channel through different radio stations. And through that, it is believed that the spirits use that energy to be able to communicate.
That the continuous stream of static that they can use. And it makes it almost appear as though they're talking in words or phrases, which we had experience with, which was pretty cool.
In a different language, nonetheless.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which is pretty wild considering, it takes a lot of energy to do that. So, when mom and I team up, we tend to notice that the energy definitely gets a little bit stronger.
Yes. It's almost like, do you know when you, I'll just explain this. When you rub your feet on, the winter time when you could feel the static electricity in the room, in your house, you know how that builds up. So it kind of feels like that when we notice, physically notice the changes within a space. And so this will detect those changes. It's kind of like a K2 meter, but more so used for them being able to speak through it. So, I'm probably the biggest critic over some of these devices, but when you use them in a controlled environment, it was just really, when there wasn't anybody else around, the things that we picked up, it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. So we went to where?
We went to Red Bank Battlefield in National Park, Fort Mercer specifically.
I keep messing that up because I keep thinking Mercer is Northern Jersey, but I think we have it down. And we were actually going to go to Fort Mifflin, but unfortunately,
it was closed.
It was closed. I don't know if there was repairs
on
or
to
something.
The next spooky spot.
Yeah, no, we just pivot very quickly. And I'll just say this, Fort Mifflin holds a place near and dear to my heart because I would go there with my mom, not to go paranormal investigating, but we'd walk on the beach and collect driftwood and do those kind of things. It was a fun place that was close to Woodbury Heights where I grew up. And this is Fort Mercer where we went National Park. So
where you went with Mama?
Yeah, where I went with Mama.
So not Mifflin.
Oh crap. Okay, see, I did it again. So glad she's listening. Yeah. So Fort Mercer, where we went, I would go there. We'd pack a lunch. We'd walk on the beach. And it was just like being outside.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah,
it is. It really, really is. It sits up on a ridge. So we went to Fort Mercer. And it's located, like I said, National Park. And it's really cool because there was a Quaker family by the name of Ann and James Whitall, who bought this. They were actually given the property as part of their wedding endowment. And they built... Well, it was amazing what they built. They built a 400-acre plantation right on the Delaware, and the plantation had fruit orchards, a lumber yard. There was a shad fishery, livestock was there, and even a ferry, which was pretty remarkable that they could go back and forth to Philadelphia for its proximity. So they raised 9 babies there. Wow. And worked alongside dozens of servants that they had, many of them coming from Ireland, Netherlands, and Germany. And that's why Germany's going to be important in a second in our story. So it's just this absolutely gorgeous brick building. They, in fact, still have some of the plantation and plants there that they used during the American Revolutionary War. So let's fast forward it. That place was built in 1748. In fact, it says it up there. And I was always enthralled because there was cannonballs like on the side of the building that they found. When you're a little kid, you see cannonballs, and they have pieces of timber there that are encased from one of the sloops that were sunk during the American Revolutionary War. This place was strategically important because of its proximity to Philadelphia
And Fort Mifflin.
and to that other place I keep messing up. Because in 1977, 1777, the American Revolution interrupted Anne and James, their livelihood there. And the American forces commandeered that place because it was so strategic. And they fought just a huge battle involving over 600 Hessians. Now, we had a diminished presence there, meaning the American soldiers, but the army was led by George Washington, and again to stop the British from getting across the river to Philadelphia. In fact, the battle that was so fierce there bought time for George Washington to head up to Valley Forge. So in October of 22nd of the same year, 77, the 900, my apologies, under British Major General Howe. He was in control of Philadelphia at the time. And so he successfully stopped those 900 Hessians from taking over. So it's really remarkable what they did. Now, again, the place is gorgeous. It really is cool. When we were there, unfortunately, they were filming promotional because they'd just done a huge restoration inside. So we couldn't gain access inside, but we had access to the grounds. And boy, the grounds were busy. So what happened during the revolution? The Revolutionary War, the American soldiers commandeered the home, and it's written here in history that Anne never forgave them for taking over the home. But it was used as a field hospital. So just think of all that timestamp of energy, the battle, people dying, wounded. I mean, field hospitals in 1777, it was, dress a wound and hope for the best. They did amputations and things like that. So the home was busy with activity. Prior to that, they had 3 daughters, 9 children, 6 sons. And Anne speaks lovingly in her diaries of how much she loved this place, although she didn't like that the boys would rather play in the water and romp around than study their Sunday lessons, is what she talked about. So when we talk about the space, let's talk about how when we first went through the grounds. So
we started off right at the monument where the officer.
And it's not actually buried there. This colonel is pretty significant. And Colonel Green, because he was commanded. There was 13 black soldiers that were seen to be instrumental in their acts of bravery on the battlefield. And it's a piece of African American history that's not really talked about. In fact, they mutilated Colonel Green. He was found a distance on the property, but further away. And the Hessians mutilated his body because of this battle and for him leading African American regiment, which I thought was pretty remarkable what we talked about.
Because the numbers were 900 Hessians versus 600.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean that's
they were outnumbered quite a bit, and with not only that, but with because this is what was so pivotal for you history buffs is that because they battled here at Fort Mercer, it gave, like I said, Washington time to get up to all the way up north to Valley Forge. And because he was in Valley Forge and this battle was successful, the French came in the following year with money. So that changed really the course of the American Revolution. When we got there, there's a monument of Colonel Green. And we thought, what a better place to put the REM pod down and use the spirit box and share with everybody what we got.
Yeah. So again, when you do these investigations, we're not always expecting to get something. So it's very rare when you do. I'll be honest, I was not expecting that we would get too much, hours and hours of investigations, you could pop up with one EVP or one session with a REM pod.
And what's an EVP?
Oh, electro voice phenomenon.
Look at her just spouting out.
So sorry. So when we put the spirit box next to the REM pod, we started asking significant questions. Is there anybody here? Not necessarily directed towards Major Hal, but we wanted to see if maybe he was there.
Or because if we and again, we didn't follow any history before we went. I was like, okay, it's a fort. Okay, this happened. I read a little thing on the front, and we just went.
And that's kind of what you do typically.
Yeah,
you like to go in
anything.
cold. You like to go in cold. No pun intended. You like to go in cold.
It was so cold. It was
freezing.
blustering. It really was.
You like to go in cold because I feel as though you get more out of it. You start, and we'll explain this why later in our next stop that we did.
Yes.
Is very important that we don't know a lot we'll history because when you go, I'm on the other hand, I like to know everything about the land and everything before I go in. I just like to be prepared. My mom is like, nah, we'll just wing it.
Yeah. I just wanted to get the impressions to see what we saw. And it's because once we have that, because I don't want to be swayed, but when we were standing there, we had the REM pod. What voices did we hear?
So when we started asking, hey, is anybody here? We did get a lot of with the spirit box. I started noticing a lot of yes and no's.
Well, we introduced ourselves.
And they love your name. We heard a lot of Kim.
Yeah.
Kim.
They kept saying my name.
Mine's a little bit more difficult, so I don't think they wanted to try that. But they kept saying Kim or here. I'm here.
Yes.
That happened a lot. What was very significant, though, was when some time went by, it got a little quiet. And I was like, let's try to keep going. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody say, Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch. And I immediately...
She spun her head around and looked at me. Now, it was windy, and I was about 5 feet from Aubrey with the spirit box. And so the REM pod's up in front of this monument.
Yeah.
And we're right where, mass casualties have happened. And for someone for you to clear, because if just picture what we were hearing on the spirit box was,
you just hear, or it's like some little word, like you hear part of the radio. It's the radio essentially.
It's scanning different radio frequencies for the white noise, and you'd hear, and you hear Sprechen Sie Deutsch, and you went, oh, what? I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, that.
And so they're asking us, do we speak German?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, Hessians makes sense, right? There's some credibility to that. So between the name and conversations, I'm here. We followed that up with, no, we don't speak German. And then we got a laugh. And then they laughed at us. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a spirit laugh at you because you don't speak German?
I missed that Duolingo lesson. I'm so sorry to the spirits that were trying to communicate with us.
We should probably go someplace where there's French being spoken. Yeah, because she can speak French.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there was a lot of communication and talking with that. Now, any kind of contact we got on the REM pod, you learn by using it. So there can be interference. So I felt like being too close to the metal could in some way sway that.
I also agree. I also believe the REM pod does really well indoors too.
Yeah.
A little bit more controlled, a little bit closed, and then you can really say the fluctuations of the environment, especially when we were outside. It's cold. It's it's.
Yeah.
Hey, but you learn by trial and error.
And then part of this was to do just that, is to use this new equipment, see what it was like. The 30-mile-an-hour winds were a little telling.
We had to sit in the car for about 5 minutes to defrost.
Okay, we did have to
But
defrost.
we powered through it.
Yes,
and we went to after we went there.
But hold on. At the house, we moved from, you're absolutely right. Where do we move to? I'm sorry, love. Go ahead.
I'll be your tour guide today.
Okay, take us on the tour.
So after we had that awesome experience at the monument, we headed down to the Whitehall house. Again, they were recording something, so we had to be
We had to dodge. They were going left. We went right.
So we toured the gardens, the medicine, which is really cool. They still keep it intact of what it originally was, using they have certain plants there that helped with the hospital.
Healing.
Healing.
Something to stop blood. It was really interesting, all of the different plants they had.
So we stood in front of the house. And while that was happening, Mom was surveying the front. And you had an experience where you all of a sudden you pointed to the left
Yes.
side of the window immediately. And you were like, there's a young girl looking down at us right there. And I believe you said, you're like, she's peering at us. Let's put the spirit box on the front. So that's what we did.
The front steps. So there's like 3 steps, then like a little porch, a little vestibule, if you will, in front of the house. It's painted, I think, green. And so that's where we placed it. And
yeah, there was some voices coming through. It was a little harder to tell, to dictate with that.
It sounded like more voices.
Yeah.
And so it was like
conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sounded like a conversation in a room, and we could hear the din of the environment, but it was kind of tough to hear specifics.
Yeah. It again, where we were trying to we're still learning with the new shiny new stuff. Again, I believe we found more at the monument than we did in front of the house, but you saw somebody in the window.
Yeah, we were just standing there. We were talking and we were looking at the garden, and I saw the curtain go over. And that's what, it was, to my left. I saw the curtain go over, and I saw a little girl, and she was probably, I want to say about 4.
And let me just interrupt before anybody said, well, you just said somebody was touring the inside. They were outside. They were outside with us. They were to our left. Everybody was accounted for. Nobody else was in the house at that time. So I just want to reiterate.
There was no children there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely no children. It was all adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people touring, they had to film, somebody carrying a boom, somebody filming.
And we might be on TV too.
I'm just, hey girl, hey. They looked like they were doing promotional, like I said, for all the work that had been done on the restoration. In our research, we found out 2 young children had passed on the property.
Illness.
Yes. Yeah. That 2 of the children, I believe one passed from smallpox, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. And so boys and girls at that age would have those type of flocks on, or night shirts, or, and that's kind of like what I saw with that child. So after that, what do we head to next?
We continued to tour the grounds. We went over to where they had the original anchor. With the driftwood.
Yep.
There was the cannonballs there. We did a spirit box session there, thinking that the spirit, it's really good to do these kinds of investigations with, they believe that if you have certain, not props, but certain
trigger objects,
artifacts, things like that, you have a better chance of finding a little bit more spirit connection. So we did a spirit box session with the cannonballs. Again, same thing that happened in front of the Woodhall house. A little bit more conversation. It was a little bit more quiet. You can really feel when the energy decides to shift. Personally, for me, I come more from the empathic. I feel a lot more energy. I could tell in that order where we were. It was like the monument had the most activity, the Woodhall house, and then when we had our little sidebar with the cannonballs, and we even tried to do it with the cannons too.
Yeah.
But again, I don't blame the spirits that linger there. They want to stay away from those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you're ever walking through the area, I mean, it's a fun place to take the kids. I don't know about admission fees and things like that, but it's a great little history place that the kids can play. There's a playground, and it's just like get them outside, get some fresh air, and learn them some history
while you're at it. Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. I mean, the energy, I would love to go inside.
Yes, I agree.
Obviously, we will visit again and compare the inside to the outside. Hopefully it won't be as cold as it was. But I look forward to that. I really do.
Same.
So on that same note of paranormal investigation, we headed then next to...
Because one stop wasn't enough. We decided to head to Harley Cemetery in Camden, New Jersey, to go visit Walt Whitman.
Now, at Harley Cemetery, there are, it's rather large. It really, a lot of people are surprised by how large it was. In fact, you were, Aubrey, about how big it is. And it was established in 1885. It's really over 150 acres. It's beautiful.
Massive.
It
It's
really
massive.
is. And it is noted for America's world poet known as.
Walt Whitman.
Yep.
If people who go to Philly, you've been on the bridge. Yes, he is buried there. We decided, kind of next door. Why not? Yeah. So hopped in the car, went there. It's funny. Again, like we said, it is a massive cemetery. So I kind of underestimated. So we got a little scenic tour.
We
So
did.
We did.
You can actually drive through like down. We didn't do that to disrespect anybody there, but they've redone the area where the lake is, and there's how should we say that? Is that the main line of the cemetery?
The aristocrats
Yes.
section. Yeah. Closer to the veterans memorial area as well. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. They've done a wonderful job. And so we went to Walt Whitman's grave to see if maybe we could get some activity there as well. A lot of people are probably thinking like, oh my goodness, cemeteries. Why are you going to a cemetery? That's where people are laid to rest. True.
But there's also people that have been, and again, we respect the grounds.
yes. Yeah.
We're not the type of people to disrespect anyone's burial site. There's the utmost respect for them. But I also wanted to go because they're also known to have several Civil War veterans in there as well. So I thought, we'll go off to
connecting the two. Yeah.
Connected the two.
So when we went there, it's interesting. His tombstone is kind of tucked away, not in an area where you would think it would be.
Yeah, it's almost like in I don't want to say grotto, but it's into
a corner.
Yeah, and he picked out the site.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he picked out the granite. Now, we learned all this afterwards, and we're sharing that with you. I did know that there were Civil War veterans there, but I didn't know there was over 300 buried there, which I thought was just like who, we often, I don't know, maybe it's me. I'm like, the Civil War happened in Virginia and it happened, down south.
Yeah.
But to understand that there was, battles here and some of those veterans have been buried locally.
Yeah.
But really we went, like you said, to see Walt Whitman.
Yeah. So, as we know, he was a prominent American poet in the 19th century.
So he's known for Leaves of Grass.
Yes.
That's his, one of the most well-known pieces of poetry that he wrote. And it really, I didn't really, he self-published in 1855. He was, he either did 6 or 9. There's dispute about who has what editions of that, depending on what's defined, they say, as a new edition. But the first edition had like 12 poems in it. One of which was the Leaves of Grass, and so he had quite a storied life. And he never married. But was, how do I say this? He was avant-garde. He was like,
ahead of his time.
There we go. That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. And so with Walt Whitman, being buried there and learning so much about him, he was a journalist and he hearkened from Huntington, New York. He died in 1882 in Camden, New Jersey. And his resting place, as we said, he's known as a poet, an essayist, and a journalism. And he was a bit, how do I say this? His poetry was known for both loss, grief, and healing, which it's like a dichotomy of the two. So when we went to his gravesite, we brought
all our shiny new toys.
This is true, and we brought the REM pod and the spirit box.
And we also had some fun.
That's right.
Yeah, we had some fun stuff. So besides the industrial shiny new, the REM pods, everything's fluctuating with energy. We also had some fun things. Cat toys. Yeah, we brought some cat toys along. Not just any cat toys. They light up.
Yes.
Little balls that light up.
Yeah.
And to make it a little fun, it's to show movement if there is an energy there.
Especially a child.
A child,
They
yeah.
tend to like those and play with them. And so we thought, why not? So we, as soon as we walked up to the gravesite, now there's the granite. Go ahead, love.
To go back to what you were saying
Yeah.
about going in cold,
Yes.
you don't like to know too much about it.
no.
So,
Go ahead. Go on.
no. When you were walking up, I was getting the lay of the land, just looking at his gravesite, and he's buried with his family. It's not just him at the tombstone. His family is buried there as well. All of a sudden, I looked around. I turned around to you, and I saw your face, and you said, "I am having a hard time breathing." You immediately get a shortness of breath.
It felt like my lungs couldn't expand.
Right. And, for some people that can mean anything. But for me, I know for you, I've worked with you enough and I've been to your events. That means something's happening. something's brewing.
Yeah. As a physical medium, I can link with an energy that's crossed, a loved one, and feel how they cross. A lot of the murder cases, missing persons, I can feel what happened to my body. Then it's a shiny, brief moment, but it's used for validation over how someone crossed. And so Aubrey and I, Aubrey pointed out to me later, because we did not know this at the time.
I mean, I didn't know. When she was saying she was having shortness of breath,
I was having a hard time,
and we're looking around, we're moving around.
I couldn't move. Like one part of my body, and then I couldn't breathe, and then one part of my body I couldn't, it just wouldn't work.
But you followed up very quickly with, how did he pass?
Yeah.
That immediately after you were I think there was a few moments of silence, and then you were like, how did he pass? So I did a quick Google search because I don't have that information off the top of my head. And here, Mr. Whitman, he passed from pulmonary emphysema.
Yeah.
Which attacks the lungs.
Pleurisy of the left side. Military tuberculosis, they called it.
Yes.
And so and later he had a stroke. So was I channeling Walt Whitman? I'm not saying. It hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Like I was walking up, stood there, and boom. And it was like, And again, we talked to him.
Yeah.
And we always introduce ourselves when we come to work with.
You always want to come from a place of respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Every time. It doesn't matter if you're in a cemetery, if you're in an abandoned building, an abandoned asylum. Doesn't matter. You always go in with a form of respect for that.
Yes. And, we introduced ourselves, talked about why we were there, thanked him for his contributions, asked him if he wanted to speak with us. And we didn't get really, again, we're outside, it's windy. Although it was quieter, and I'll say this because we were tucked down lower, we were almost like below the line of the wind. We didn't get a whole lot there.
It was quiet.
It was quiet.
Peaceful.
It really was. And we just took it that, he made his presence known to us, and that was enough.
Yeah.
And we thanked him. There was no really any touching of the REM pod there, and nothing with the ball of
no.
But it was like, if anything, my love of history, which is ironic because if you ask my 10th grade history teacher, I was doomed. Mr. Parker, if you're still with us, God love you. If you're an angel, I've learned to embrace history, especially U.S. history. And so it's just great to go to different sites when we do the investigation. So, we debrief from it. We did that. We take the recordings and then isolate them and then put them on a speaker, and you can absolutely hear the German speaking. You can absolutely hear them calling my name, which happened at all three sites, which was a little unsettling, I just have to say. So we learned a lot, right? We learned how to use the equipment, get more comfortable with it. It's going to take a while. And by the way, there's more in the Amazon cart. And I'm gonna just
Goody.
say, and
Christmas in July.
Woo-woo. And we learn history, and then I get to spend time with my daughter, which is always a bonus.
Yeah. I get to drive her around all day.
Yeah, Miss
Driving
Daisy.
Miss Daisy.
There
yeah.
we go. So I always end this with a mediumship moment. And so, my mediumship moment I'll share with something that just happened recently. They often, your angels will link by name or by occupation or something fun. So just this past week, I had people coming in to chat with me and their angels. And I had a situation where a father came forward and he was dressed as Santa. And he kept telling me to tell his daughter to get something out of her handbag. Well, see, her father would dress up for Santa for the neighborhood, and he was so good at it and so well loved. And here, my client, the thing she had in her bag was the actual jingle bells that he used to wear and shake as he walked in the door of the local neighborhood kids playing Santa. And I thought, wow, that's just remarkable that he's still showing up as Santa over there on the other side. And then later, the same day, I had a woman sit with me, and a gentleman came forward, and he had the white hair, the white beard, blue eyes, handsome son of a gun. And he was saying, I'm Santa. I'm Santa. And in fact, during the winter, he would be Santa. And then the summer, he would cut down the beard. But in the wintertime, he would grow it. And he was lovingly, affectionately known to all his friends as Santa. So, in the thought of Christmas in July, keep chatting with your angels because they can hear you.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time for another episode of Mediumship Moments. If you enjoyed this episode of Kim's podcast, check her out on Instagram and TikTok at Kim Durham Medium.